Let's start talking about research paradigms. If you remember last session, we talked about the concept of paradigm, and we said it is the dominant, actually, viewpoints in a particular field of study. So the word paradigm was first presented by Thomas Kuhn in 1962. This concept comes from a book which is called The Structure of Scientific Revolutions. The concept of paradigm came first from the field of science, and then later it entered other fields of study. So today we have paradigm, and we call everything or every theoretical basis with these characteristics as a paradigm. What do we mean by a paradigm? When the practitioner's attention is attracted to a particular way of thinking and it's taken away from other competing methods. Consider teaching methods. Do we use grammar translation method now? Is it as an updated method now? It is not, okay? After grammar translation, we had audiolingual method, then we had communicative language teaching, then we had task-based language teaching, and then we had post-method era. So we have different paradigms. It means that when audiolingual method came to the fore, so people put away the grammar translation method. When communicative language teaching method was presented, all practitioners tried to use communicative language teaching in their classes. They put aside audiolingual method, they put aside parrot learning, they put aside repetition, they put aside grammar translation method. So this is why communicative language teaching is called a paradigm. You studied this in language teaching methods course, am I right? You know about CLT, communicative language teaching, grammar translation method in your teaching methodology. So when something is presented, is introduced, and people accept it, and they put aside the rest of things that existed before, this is called a paradigm. So a paradigm is sufficiently open-ended. It means that it provides us with opportunities that are new. So to leave all sorts of problems for the redefined group of practitioners to resolve. What does it mean? It means that now we have CLT, communicative language teaching. So communicative language teaching provides the teachers with opportunities to provide the students with different discussion tasks, with different group work tasks, with different pair work tasks, with grammar teaching, with the speaking actually activities. So we have lots of opportunities, lots of issues can be actually presented to the students by those teachers who have communicative language teaching approach in their classes. This is why CLT was considered as a paradigm. So by paradigm, we mean the shared belief systems that influence the kind of knowledge researchers seek and how they interpret the evidence they collect. What does it mean? It means that previously, researchers tried to use numbers in order to show and prove something. This is why previously researchers had quantitative approach. It means that they tried to use numbers in order to show something is true. But later, they said, no, just numbers cannot show us that something is true. Sometimes we need to provide descriptions. Sometimes we provide analysis without numbers. So this was why actually they provided a new way of thinking. So a paradigm refers to the shared belief systems. It means that the ways actually researchers, individuals, scholars, practitioners, people in a community like applied linguistics, like chemistry, like physics, like philosophy, like psychology, think about different issues that exist. So this is why it says the kind of knowledge and interpretation. So one of your friend wrote, make it easy to model complex systems and define all entities. Yeah, so we will talk about this as, you know, the quantitative approach. Yes. So we can say the paradigm determines how researchers approach the problem theoretically and methodologically. So the paradigm can define actually how we think about different phenomena, how we define different concepts in our field of study. Let's see what paradigms we had in research to make it clarified. You know, we have different paradigms, but major ones include two: positivism considered as the focus of research. For example, it is said, okay, if I can measure the student's level of anxiety by giving them a questionnaire, a number of questions, they answer the questions, and then I count the number and I come up with a score. This score shows the student's degree of anxiety. This is actually what positivism believes in. It is said that if I can quantify, if I can use numbers, if I can see things, then I can do research about them. For example, I can't see the processes that are involved in learning a language in the student's brain, so I can't do research about this. This is what positivism actually believed in. From the positivism perspective, reality is single and external to the researcher's knowledge. What does it mean? It means that there is one single interpretation. For example, if I give a questionnaire to the, let's say, students, and I come up with a score. The score is 20. It's 20 out of 20. It shows that this student is a good student, is a smart student, and studied well. If another student gets, for example, 15, it shows that this student could not study well. This student is not as good as the student who got 20. This is actually the basis of positivism. It is said that the number shows something. The number is meaningful. So what we can observe, what we can measure can be the focus of our study or research. This is why they have close and rigorous observations of the phenomena, and they control the circumstances and conditions. What does it mean? It means that they try to have careful observation, close observation, rigorous observation, very careful understanding of what is measured. And they try to control the situation. For example, if I want to see the student's anxiety level, I know anxiety level of students when they are male students or female students, different. So I want to say which group is the group that I want to do study. So for example, I want to see female students' level of anxiety and how their level of anxiety can influence, let's say, their speaking skill in the class. So I go to a class in which I have only female students. They control the condition. If they want to compare male and female students, so they control the teacher in the male class and the female class should be the same, because I want to see their level of anxiety. If they have two teachers, maybe their level of anxiety is influenced by different teachers. So they try to control the condition, and they try to carefully observe the class, carefully observe the point that is under the study. They try to be as objective as possible. Do you know the meaning of objectivity in research? What do we mean when we say we need to be objective? Can you tell me what is objectivity in research?
Yes, doctor.
Yes, please.
Objectivity, it means the science depends on the observation.
That's right. Good. Thank you.
Thank you for you.
What about the rest? You can write in the chat box. Depend on the researcher's viewpoint. So we can say it does not depend on researcher's viewpoint. It's better to say objectivity means it does not depend. What else? So you can write in the chat box. So objectivity is the opposite of subjectivity, okay? For example, I think blue is a nice color. Another person thinks that red is a nice color. Another person thinks that green is a nice color. This is not objectivity. This is subjectivity. It means that each of us has his or her own view, his or her own opinion. But I look at the sky and I say it's blue. Another person looks at the sky and sees it as blue. Another person looks at the sky and sees it as blue. When there is one single interpretation of a phenomenon, this is objectivity. Okay? So when I give a test to a group of students, 3 students get 20. 3 teachers would be asked about these students who get 20. All the teachers think that those students who get 20 are good students, are hardworking students. So this is objectivity. It means that in positivism, they tried to consider objectivity in doing research. It means that they tried to measure the observable aspects, which can give one interpretation, which can give us evidence of something. This is why positivism was the basis for quantitative research. In quantitative research, we have numbers, and numbers have meanings. Numbers have fixed single interpretations. This was the dominant paradigm for several years. Even nowadays, we conduct quantitative studies. So quantitative research is an important part of conducting research. We will talk about quantitative research, variables, questions, sampling, data collection, data analysis. We'll talk about all these in the following sessions. Now, we have another paradigm. Actually, there was a paradigm shift. It means that the dominant way of looking at research changed. So we have interpretive constructivism view as well. Interpretive constructivism is the root for qualitative research. By qualitative research, we mean we do not deal with the numbers. We have photographs, we have text, we have actually conversations, we have pictures, we have interpretations, we have interviews, we have observations of different classes, of different phenomena, and we describe things. We give detailed explanation of the evidence instead of detailed statistical information, instead of numbers. So one of your friends wrote about subjectivities. They claim that perception emerges from a subject point of view, opposed to objectivity, where knowledge is seen to be independent of the subject. Thank you very much. Thank you. A good definition for subjectivity and objectivity. Thank you. So, interpretive constructivism paradigm comes from phenomenological philosophy and critical philosophy. You know, in critical philosophy, it was mentioned that, for example, when you read a piece of poem, okay, you have your own interpretation, your friend has his or her own interpretation, another person would have his or her own interpretation. So they said, if I read one line, one verse of a piece of poem, you can have your own interpretation, and your interpretation is right. My interpretation is also right. This is the basis for interpretive constructivism. It means that meaning has different interpretations. One phenomenon can be interpreted differently by different people, and all those interpretations can be right. So it focuses on holistic information and interpretive approaches. What does it mean? It means that I see a student got 18, another student got 20. Based on positivism, quantitative, objective approach, I would say the student who got 20 is more hardworking than the student who got 18. But based on interpretive, I would say, no, that student who got 20 is a good student, but the other student who got 18 is also a good student. Why? Because the student who got 18 was sick for 1 week. So he tried his best to get the, good score. So we can't say that that student who got 20 is a better one. Okay, you see the difference between interpretive paradigm and positivism? Here we have interpretive approach. It means that numbers necessarily can't tell us about different things. So we have multiple realities about the phenomena in the world. So we can have our own interpretation, and our interpretation can be valid. So knowledge is socially constructed. What does it mean? It means that context is important. Okay? Consider the case of two students. A student who got 20, a student who got 18. The student who got 20 is a smart one, is a hardworking one. But the student who got 18 is also a good one in the sense that he was sick for 1 week, so he tried his best and he worked a lot and he studied a lot to be a good student. So the context here is important. The context is that this student was sick, and being sick can prevent you from studying, can actually make you bored, can make you feel not well. So it takes you a lot of energy to prepare yourself for the exam. So based on interpretive and constructivism approach, we should say that that student who got 18 was maybe even more hardworking. So we explored the world in the light of the meanings people bring to the phenomena. It means that now the researcher's point of view is also part of the research. My interpretation is part of the research. Your interpretation is part of the research. Consider this situation. I want to check the students, the Iranian English language learners' motivation in language schools, in language institutes. If I give them a questionnaire, and then those who get higher scores have higher level of motivation, this is quantitative based on positivism. But if I go to one class in which we have 40 students, and I ask those 40 students, do you feel motivated in your English class? What are the factors that help you to be motivated in English class? What factors can demotivate you? What factors can increase or decrease your motivation? Now, it is not based on the scores. It is based on my interpretation. It is based on the meanings those students give to motivation. So this is interpretive constructivism paradigm. So we can say qualitative research has its basis in interpretive constructivism paradigm. So one of your friends wrote something else. Yeah, we will talk about those diagrams and things when it comes to data analysis. Thank you. So these are two dominant paradigms. Okay, so these two dominant paradigms in research. Any questions about these two paradigms? Is it clear? That's right. Thank you for writing the difference between philosophy of history and critical philosophy. Thank you. Thank you. So, is it clear or you need more explanation? Tell me. Great. So when it is clear, it shows that we have, based on, this is my interpretation, we have smart students in this class too. Okay, good. So these were the basic paradigms. Paradigm is an umbrella term. Now, let's see, based on these paradigms, what approaches we have in conducting research. The very first and dominant approach based on positivism is quantitative approach. Okay? In quantitative approach, we have a hypothesis, we test the hypothesis, we prove it right or wrong. For example, I propose a hypothesis. I say there is a significant relationship between a student's level of anxiety and their low scores in English language tests. I make a hypothesis. I say there is a significant relationship between a student's anxiety and low scores in English tests. Then I want to test my hypothesis. What should I do? I give the students a questionnaire and I measure their level of anxiety. So I have some scores for anxiety. Then I give them a test. I correct their papers. I have some scores of their English test. Now, I try to explore the relationship by conducting some statistical tests like correlation. We will talk about these later. And I come up with a number. This number shows me the significant relationship between anxiety and the student's low score. So I come to this understanding that if students feel more anxious in the class, their scores in the exam will be lower. So this is hypothesis testing research. It means that we have a hypothesis, then we test our hypothesis based on the data analysis procedures, and then we confirm the hypothesis or we reject it. Mostly quantitative studies are experimental. It means that we do something and we see the result, and we deal with numerical values. It means that the numbers have meanings. So quantitative research is a systematic investigation of phenomena by gathering quantifiable data and performing a statistical, mathematical, computational techniques. Exactly. Thank you very much. Thank you. Okay. Do you have my voice clear? آقای فیصل زید سعود, if I'm right, you can rejoin the class if you have problem actually listening to me clearly, okay? When the voice is not clear, rejoin the class. Exit and enter again. So quantitative research is systematic. Yeah, thank you. So we're dealing with mathematical techniques. That's right. As we said, we consider the numerical values. For example, a higher number shows a higher level of that particular concept. So quantitative research uses numbers and statistics. Exactly. Surveys, experiments, tests. The goal is to have objective, reliable data. Exactly. So we have objectivity. For answering questions like how much, how often, what is the relationship? Thank you. Thank you very much. Several unique characteristics. Good. Yeah. So for specific projects we can use. Thank you. Good point. Thank you. In quantitative, okay? رقدار, am I right? So we can actually interpret the numbers in quantitative approach. Quantitative focus on testing hypotheses using experiments and numerical. So situated activity is for qualitative. سید سجاد خزیر آقای سجاد خزیر, okay? Situated activity is for qualitative. We will talk about this. آقای بیسر, if you don't see the picture, exit the class and enter the class. Okay? Whenever there is a problem with the picture, with the slide, or with the sound, you can exit and enter and the problem can be solved, or maybe it's because of the weak internet that you have. So a hypothesis is an assumption based on some evidence, yes. So we try to investigate it, yeah, and make predictions. Thank you very much. We'll talk about variables. Thank you. I just see your student number, not your name, but you're actually writing pieces of information. Thank you. A systematic investigation. Thank you. Good. Great. What does it mean? When we say situated, it means that the context is important. For example, 2 students in 2 schools got 20 in their English exam, okay? Based on quantitative approach, these 2 students are smart, these 2 students are motivated, these 2 students are hardworking. But based on qualitative research, I go to school A and I talk to the teacher. The teacher says, yes, this student is a smart one, is hardworking. I go to school B and I see that the teacher says, no, this student is not hardworking. This student cheated on the final exam, huh? So you see, both of them got 20. Based on quantitative approach, both are good students and hardworking, but based on the situated activity, based on the analysis of the context, based on the description, I go to the teachers of these 2 students and I understand a student in school B got 20 because of cheating. So the context here shows whether that 20 means a hardworking student or not. This is the situated activity. Ragdob is a female name, am I right? So locate the researcher in the real world situations. That's right, exactly. So the researcher goes to the context. Ragda, a nice name. What does it mean, Ragda? In English, what does it mean? Measuring mathematical phenomena and the relationship. آقای محمد سعد عبیدی, if I'm not wrong, the definition you wrote is for quantitative. And the student number 4031, and so situated action refers to the learner's responsiveness to the environment. Yeah, actually it's inquiry based because, you know, we consider the context. Raqda means happy life and comfort. Great, good name. Okay. So آقای محسن عزاوی, qualitative research focuses on understanding people's thoughts, feelings, experiences, and behaviors. Instead of numbers, we have interviews, observation, and analyzing the written or spoken word. Exactly. So we try to consider the interpretation of different actually phenomena. We have an inquiry process. We try to have a detailed understanding, a detailed description. We try to receive as much information as possible about the phenomenon. Okay, so qualitative research is subjective, quantitative research is objective. Now, we have another approach that is recent.